Davy! Awesome. Welcome to Davy's Awesome Movies, where I review the styles of movies that I love, the alternative, B-rated, cult-style flicks. And this week it's the second in a classic cult flick series. This one was released in 1996, 6 years after the original, 7 years after it was made. And it was written and directed by S.S. Wilson, and co-written by Brent Maddock, produced by Nancy Roberts and Christopher DeFaria, made by Universal Pictures as well as Stampede Entertainment, and distributed by MCA Universal Home Entertainment. Ladies and gentlemen, Tremors 2, Aftershocks. The movie opens with an oil worker in an oil field in Mexico on a pipe, obviously trying to stay off the ground. In fact, when he gets to the end of the pipe, he jumps onto some oil containers, because apparently he's in a very, very serious game of the floor is lava. Oh, okay, maybe not. I think that probably is a graboid. You know what, since it's a sequel to a movie about graboids, I'm going to go ahead and say it was a graboid. That worker is almost to his van when he falls. Well, at least this movie's not going to waste any time. Then we leave Mexico and head back to Perfection, Nevada, which is still not a real place. And we meet up with Earl Bassett from the first movie, played by the late, great Fred Ward. And apparently now he's got a couple of ostriches. The problem is, though, is he can't get these ostriches to mate. And he's getting angry about that. He's even threatening them that they better start mating.
I'm gonna take some barbecue sauce to both of you.
Well, Earl, there's a problem here. Those two are probably not gonna mate because those are both male ostriches. Female ones are more brown and smaller. Earl suddenly sees a car driving up, and inside is a Mr. Ortega, an oil man, also makes taco shells, and a Grady Hoover. They're there to meet Earl about their graboid problem.
We need someone, an expert, to eliminate these creatures.
Yes, before the government declares them an endangered species in the middle of their oil field. Ortega tells Earl that they already tried to get Val, but he turned them down. This is to explain why Kevin Bacon is not in the movie.
Val married a good woman. Why would he want to die?
And we'll meet his daughter in the sixth movie. Earl's turning it down too, but Grady's trying to reason with him that they are willing to pay $50,000 a graboid.
Who are you, and why are you so dumb?
Because Grady is the equivalent of turkey bacon versus real bacon. Earl is not only not wanting to do this, but he's also kind of bitter. Because even though he's a part of the people that discovered the graboids, he didn't think to legally do what he should have done to make sure he would get a cut of any merchandise with graboids on it. Ouch. But Grady tells him not only are they offering $50,000 a graboid, but the Mexican army will provide anything they ask for in hunting these graboids.
You've got a deal.
Bravo, bravo. And I'm going with him.
Why is he going? Grady pleads with Earl to let him go. Says if he lets him be his partner in this, he will do anything Earl asks. He'll even do all the grunt work for Earl. Earl agrees because this might work.
When they're eating you, to give me a chance to get away.
Well, let's hope. While Earl and Grady are driving, Earl teaches Grady about rock, paper, scissors over the last soda.
What's this?
Scissors cuts paper. I win.
How are you a grown man and you don't know rock, paper, scissors? Once Earl and Grady get to Senor Ortega's, he not only shows them that the Mexican army has provided everything they asked for, he also introduces them to their on-site geologist. Yes, an oil field would have one of those employed.
Let me introduce you to Kate Riley. She's the geologist for the oil company.
Well, looks like in this movie it's Earl's turn. They also meet Julio, the man who set them up with their seismographs.
You know, you must have made a lot of money, huh? The royalties on that video game alone.
Ouch, Julio. Very ouch. The next morning, Earl and Grady head over to the site that the graboids were most noticed at. And it's there that Earl unveils his secret weapon. RC cars. That he can remotely make travel with sticks of dynamite on them. Which he does. He makes it travel all over. The graboids notice it and... Earl was prepared. Then from there we see a little montage of them blasting graboid after graboid after graboid. Meaning while I'm watching this, I'm always going, yeah, 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 because I love explosions. And then, of course, they stop and have some lunch. Even listen to the radio.
You left the radio on the ground?
Sorry, I forgot.
This is what happens when you get faux bacon. Later, they're trying to get some shut-eye, but they hear a coyote. It's keeping them up. Problem solved! In the morning, they get another graboid.
That makes 300,000.
During the montage, by my count, it's 400,000. You know, unless you were just setting off explosions for no reason. That's what I would do. Grady's umbrella flies away, so he goes to go get it.
Get off the ground!
Damn! It didn't get him. But even worse, a graboid grabs the chain on the back of their truck. And if we remember anything about the first one, is that they can swallow whole vehicles. Earl is trying desperately to drive off, but this graboid is just too strong.
Oh! What do I do?
You go back and ask him if they can hold off production a little bit until Kevin Bacon can be in it. The graboid drags them until they end up on top of a rock, so it can't drag them anymore. Breaks the chain. But not only that, they notice on their monitor that they are about to be swarmed by graboids. There's a lot more in this one than there were in the first one. So because of this, Earl determines they are going to need some help.
You'd be crazy enough to want to help us with this mess!
I can think of somebody.
Yeah.
Hey, Bert.
Bart! Of course, Earl starts in with some pleasantries like, you know, how's Heather, your wife?
She's still visiting her sister.
She's not visiting. She left him. And they did this to explain why Reba McEntire could not be in this movie. But now that that's over, Earl goes into the situation.
A graboid kind of situation.
Bert! Later, Kate is comparing fossil fragments with other fragments that they got off these graboids and has determined that these graboids predate dinosaurs.
Damn. Always thought they're from outer space.
That was a lot of people's theories. Then they all start to feel something shaking. And they see something coming up on their monitor. But Earl sees it's not a graboid.
It's something more dangerous.
It's Bert! When Bert shows up, we see that he took full advantage of the Mexican army offering supplies. Just lots and lots of explosives. But then again, he took more advantage than Earl would because he knows what to ask for. The next morning before they split up to go hunt some graboids, Bert hands out a few of his MREs.
Brought 120 pounds of it.
If you've never had an MRE, good for you. And of course, it doesn't take Bert long until... Earl and Grady, though, notice something strange. Instead of a graboid coming towards them, it's going away from them. So they follow it. And once they get to it, it pops up, making them go back into a ditch. And they break their truck. But the odd thing is, it's still not coming after them. It's just laying there. Once they get to it, that graboid seems not interested in them. They try everything. They try to smack it. It won't come after them. Nothing. It's just laying there. So, Earl radios Kate, asking for one of the workers, Pedro, to come down with his truck that has a crane, because not only do they need a ride back to base, but they need the crane because they've caught a live one. Although I wouldn't say you caught it, more surrendered. Later, they are resting and waiting for Pedro, and suddenly that graboid makes a horrible, terrible noise. And before you're asking, no, it didn't start playing a Billie Eilish song. Wasn't that horrible. But when they go to check on it, the graboid is dead, and there's a huge crater in the graboid's body, which is pretty obvious what's going on here. The graboid had a huge pimple, it rolled over, it popped it, and this is the result.
Something came out of it.
Okay, that's more likely. Earl is also determining that, like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, it mutated in some way. But he's guessing that it's not something pretty like a butterfly. So he goes to radio Kate.
The radio's out. How could that be?
Well, now all they can do is wait for Pedro.
There's Pedro.
And now he'll make all your wildest dreams come true.
He stopped.
He stopped.
He stopped? They think he must just be going to the bathroom.
That's a long leak.
I don't know. Maybe he baked you a cake or something. After a little bit, they determine they have no choice but to walk over to Pedro's truck and see what's going on, even though that's very dangerous. But when they get to Pedro's truck, they see that it has been destroyed. And not only that, but they find Pedro!
Pedro?
Now there's not only no point in voting for him, but I can't do any more Napoleon Dynamite jokes. Gosh! Now all they can do is head to the radio tower.
Don't tell me that's the radio stuff.
Well, that explains why it wasn't working. But they're in luck. They see a car that hasn't been destroyed, so Grady goes over to hotwire it. And it's movies like this that made me think growing up that there was always somebody around that knows how to hotwire a car. Turns out they don't. And the people who think they do don't. But as he's doing that, they hear something.
What the hell is that?
That is a shrieker! It's what the graboids become. So named because they do a Rosie O'Donnell impression. These shriekers are much easier to kill than the graboids. The problem is, there's a lot more of them, as Bert soon finds out. Bert! Back at the station, Kate is very worried, because the radios have been out since the night before, and they all knew that the protocol was if the radios go out to head back to base, and they haven't come back yet.
I'm going to go to look for them right now.
Okay, then don't you...
I don't think he's going to go looking for him. But just then, Earl and Grady show up and kill the shriekers that were just eating Julio. It's too bad you guys couldn't have shown up like 1 minute earlier. They decide with this new graboid shrieker thing going on that they need to get out of there. But when they go out to leave, they see a shrieker ripping their engine apart. So they are stuck there. But luckily for them, Bert's back! Luckily for us too, because Bert... I'm just so happy that Bert is okay. Mostly, Bert tells them how he was surrounded by shriekers.
Must have been a couple of dozen of these things.
Yes, but at least you're Bert. He tells them he was able to run some of them over, but he had to fight a lot of them off with small arms weapons.
I am completely out of ammo.
And it took a lot.
That's never happened to me before.
I'll bet! But after he killed them all, there was one that was still alive, but stunned.
So I detained him.
Bert! Bert goes to park his truck, and they take the shrieker inside and cage it so they can study it. Oh no. Inside, while studying these shriekers, they determine they don't see and they don't hear or feel vibrations like the other graboids. They see the infrared, which explains why they destroyed the cars. The engines were hot. The reason they shriek is they also determined that puts off heat to alert the other shriekers. From there, they also eat by feeling around with their tongues. They determine that by giving it an MRE. Once it eats enough, it basically vomits up a baby shrieker, which is slightly less gross than actual childbirth. But just then, one crashes in the window, and they get it away, but then notice in the warehouse...
You gotta be a damn superfood, Bert!
Well, that's bad. They're now surrounded by a bunch of shriekers that have had other little shriekers, so they make a run for it. While they're running, Grady sees a building and tells them all that they gotta get in there. Kate is yelling at him, though. No, not there. Because it turns out it's an unfinished building. But since the shriekers can't see them, they're hidden, even their heat. They grab a couple of doors and inch their way away from the shriekers before they get seen to get to Julio's truck, the only truck that is running right now. But on the way there, they see a shrieker just chilling.
How far is it?
100 yards.
Well, that's nothing for Bert. Yeah, Bert! By the way, I want that gun. But there is a problem. That bullet went through the shrieker, through the brick wall it was in front of, through a couple of oil drums, all the way through Julio's engine.
We're supposed to be up against graboids. I wanted maximum penetration.
And that shrieker didn't kill you, did it? But now they can't leave, and they're being surrounded by shriekers. So Grady goes up an oil tower, Kate and Earl go into a building, and Bert, he has to dive into the scooper of a tractor. Earl and Kate cannot stay inside the little building because they are sitting ducks. So Earl heats up a shirt, sends it out on a clothesline to distract them, and they go up the oil tower with Grady. So now all they have to do is wait there until help arrives. Since they've been out of communication, somebody is eventually going to come for them. On the tower, while waiting, Earl and Kate are getting to know each other. She talks about how she put herself through college by being a model. She was even a playmate.
October 74?
Who would remember that? Never mind. But as they are reminiscing about his lifetime subscription, Grady points out that the Shriekers are climbing on top of each other to get onto that tower. So them sitting and waiting is not gonna cut it. But Bert has an idea!
Come get me, you suckers!
They go after him. Bert has them chase him and traps them in a warehouse. And while they're congratulating Bert, good job, you trapped him, they start hearing that shrieking, which means there's a problem. They get up, look in through one of the windows, and realize the warehouse that Bert trapped him in is where they store the food.
I didn't know! How could I have known?
And again, are any of you dead? No. Only Mexicans died in this one. Obviously, with the sheer numbers that are going to come of Shriekers, they're going to get out of this warehouse. So Earl comes up with a plan. Spray him with a fire extinguisher so they won't be able to see his body heat, because that stuff's cold. He will sneak in, get to some of Bert's explosives, and blow up the entire warehouse. Grady says it's a great plan, but he wants to do it. So he says they should shoot for it.
Yes! No, rock rips through paper. Huh?
Let's see how long this is going to take him. So now Earl gets sprayed with a fire hose, goes inside the warehouse, and it's working. They can't see him because he's so cold. But while he's sneaking around and about to get to a bomb, Grady finally realizes.
Paper wraps rock, doesn't it?
Paper always wraps rock.
You know who already knew that? Bacon. But now that stuff is melting off of Earl. He has to get out of the warehouse, and now. So he just grabs a random bomb, sets it, and throws it in the back of Bert's truck. And then they cut and lower a fire hose to get Earl out of there. And when he gets out of there, Bert is asking which bomb did he set off, and he tells him that he just set a bomb and threw it in the midst of his other bombs.
God, Bert, don't tell me it's not enough! Not enough!
Did you see the amount of explosives he has? I think it's enough.
No, no, no! Keep going! It's gonna be big!
Bert knows his bombs.
Oh, I can't wait.
Get down! Stay down! Cover your ears! It's gonna be big!
Well, I'm gonna say after the suspense, this better be a frickin' big explosion.
Some people think I'm overprepared. Paranoid. Maybe even a little crazy.
I think you're Bert. Kate and Earl talk about how they should, go out. And I'm pretty sure that Kate is going to have plenty of free time, considering her job exploded.
Hey, that's just part of the job.
So there you have it. That's the follow-up to the cult classic Tremors. Tremors 2, Aftershocks. This movie was a struggle for them to get done. It had a $4 million budget and no box office to speak of, as it had a very, very small theater release, but was mostly considered a straight-to-VHS release, which is how we saw it. My brother and I, we were both fans of the first Tremors movie. We were at the video store. God, I miss video stores. And we saw, oh look, there's a Tremors 2. Let's check it out. We did. We liked it. I wouldn't say as much as the first one, but we still liked it. Originally, this movie was going to be filmed in Australia with a $17 million budget, but that was with the promise of having both Reba McEntire and Kevin Bacon return for the sequel. But Reba McEntire stated that whereas she wanted to do the sequel, she couldn't because filming was going to be taking place during a major music tour that she was going to be on. As far as Kevin Bacon goes, he had to turn it down because he was already committed to doing Apollo 13. Which commercially, Apollo 13 was a much bigger success than Tremors 2, so I get it, but I will say Apollo 13 was boring. This was awesome. So because of this, the project was almost canceled. But then several of the actors and special effects team offered to lower their rates, and some of them even to work for free just to get this movie made. For example, the director, S.S. Wilson, who was also co-writer of both this and the first one, offered to direct it completely for free so long as they get it made. Not to mention other cost-cutting effects, like it was supposed to originally be filmed and located in Australia. They changed the script to have it be in Mexico. That way they could film it in Valencia, California. The reason it had such a small theater release is because that was another problem they had with it. They felt that the first one didn't do very well in theaters, did very great on VHS. So it made them confident to make it, but not necessarily put it in the theaters, except for the fact that Kevin Bacon was going to be in it. They were like, if we put it in the theaters, maybe we can make some money. Because this didn't have Kevin Bacon At the time, really any big name actor. Like, of course, it had Michael Gross, who returned as Bert, and it had Fred Ward return. But Fred Ward, sadly, throughout his entire career, he was never like a big name actor. He was always basically the actor that if you were a huge movie buff like me, you knew who he was. If you weren't a movie buff like me, you're like, oh, that's that guy from that one thing. Michael Gross at the time was mostly remembered as the dad from Family Ties. So they didn't have any top billing people in this, which made them weary about releasing it. It actually took almost 2 years from the time it was finished to get released because they just didn't know what to do with it. But once it got onto VHS, of course, there was a huge cult following with Tremors. It made its money back. But this would also be the last Tremors movies that was in theaters at all. The rest of them would all be straight to video. The scene where Bert fights off all the Shriekers, they did actually film it, but there was a problem. It was deleted because whereas some of the Shriekers were done with practical effects, some were done with CGI, CGI was not nearly what it was today, and the directors were like, this just looks too awful and corny. Not to mention it being set at night, you could easily tell which ones were CGI, so they just deleted the scene. Which I get, but that kind of sucks. It would have been nice to see Bert fight him off. It's always nice to see Bert in action. There were actually 2 different designs for the Shriekers before they went to making the movie. There was the design that they ended up using, the kind of fatter, smaller, more menacing looking Shriekers. And then there was another more bug-like Shrieker. They ended up using that design as the bugs in Starship Troopers. Yeah, those were supposed to be the Shriekers. Either way, whereas I will say none of the sequels were as good as the first one, I would say none of the other sequels have been as good as this one. I wouldn't say they all keep getting worse and worse. It does start to taper off, and you're like, well, I like this one more, I like that one more. In my opinion, the first 2 are the 2 best. The first one is the best. But then again, it's always going to be a little less good when there's no bacon. However, it's still a fantastic movie. I still enjoy watching this movie to this day, like I did the first time I saw it. So on that note, if you've not seen Tremors 2, Aftershocks, and it's time you get out there and check out Tremors 2, Aftershocks. So there you have it. That's my movie review this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notifications when I post videos. And leave a comment I can respond to in my next comment corner. Tell me what you thought of Tremors 2, Aftershocks. Love you guys.